Welcome to another episode of Creating Lasting Change. And I am really excited to have with me today Trina, and we are going to be speaking about crises, how to navigate and be confident while we are in the midst of crisis situations. I'm really excited to be talking about this today. Let me introduce her and we are going to get started talking. Trina is the driving force behind RespondAbility Leadership by the TK Holman Company. As a consultant and coach, she specializes in helping women stand in their own power through self-leadership. She's known to throw in some cool tips for physical and psychological safety too. Trina is not your average consultant. She thrives on helping innovative entrepreneurs, business leaders, and school superheroes handle crises like pros. With a background as a safety and security habits trainer, a practitioner of empowerment self-defense, and a member of the Maxwell Leadership Certified Team, she brings 3 decades of leadership and communication expertise, a degree in organizational management, and a whole lot of fun to her work. Welcome, Trina. I'm really excited that you're here because I think it's so important to have these conversations.
It is truly, Tricia. Thank you for having me. Thank you to everyone who's joining us today and watching the replay. We're going to have some great conversation today. And, honestly, this is something that absolutely every single person deals with at some time and sometimes more frequently than others. So let's have a great conversation today.
Yeah, so let's start talking about the importance of empowerment and conversation in navigating challenges because we have challenges constantly. And of course, there's also varying degrees of challenges.
There are. So the mindset behind being prepared is just as important as having that written plan. And it really means, first of all, starting by assessing your preparedness, really understanding where you are. Some people are just born ready to take on whatever comes their way. Some of us have to really figure it out along the way. And that was the case for me. I just felt absolutely overwhelmed every time there was a flat tire or a project at work went wrong, and I was still trying to navigate family, work, community, all those responsibilities. I had to get my mindset straight. And that just, for me, meant overcoming that doubt, the self-doubt, the subconscious doubt of, can I really handle what is thrown at me when it all hits the fan? Am I going to be knocked down with it? I had to change the way I was speaking to myself and really being kind to with the words I use to tell myself, hey, we've got this. And I used affirmations, and I used just a lot of reflection. I think, well, it honestly, this is what went into, I have this mnemonic. When a word represents, the letters in a word represent a process. So I have this mnemonic for prepare, and it's prepare, reflect, empower. I have to get it right. Plan, act. What is it? Refresh and evaluate. All right. So those first two, prepare, reflect, actually 3, empower. Those are the most important steps in being ready to take on challenges. So just reflect on your self-doubt, your limiting beliefs for developing your empowered mindset.
And that's really important because we tend to, if we don't believe something went right or we don't believe we handled it the best to our ability, we tend to beat the crap out of ourselves. We belittle, like our self-talk. I kid you not, if that was a friend talking to me, I'd be like, peace, buddy, see you later. but it's okay because it's ourselves talking, but it's really not. It's absolutely not. And if we want to move forward to handling and being prepared, as you're talking about, it does come down to how we internally see ourselves and how we internally speak to ourselves, because it's really important. So, how did you start to change that, look at that, and really gain more confidence? Because there we have, situations where it is a flat tire, to some catastrophic thing happening in our lives. And catastrophic can be, you know, someone passing, a situation at work, or stuff that goes on around in the world.
So I was the world's worst. I was pretty negative to myself for a number of years because I was a mom of 4 kids. They were all teenagers at one time. So they were all pretty close together in age. There were twins in the middle. My husband was injured in a car accident, became disabled. I was working full time. At one point, while the kids were teenagers, I was also going to school full time and working full time. So I was juggling a lot. And when everything didn't go right, I was not very nice to myself. I really beat myself up. I wasn't that Pinterest mom, right? I didn't have all my ducks in a row. And sometimes something would be forgotten. I'd forget to pay a bill, or I'd forget to put gas in the car. That happened more than once, probably. But when something truly major happened, my husband, already disabled, had a cancer diagnosis. And like, I can't handle this if I don't figure out how to do a better job. And I've got to be my best friend in this. And so I just worked on all my experiences in the past and really, like, I'm a planner. Started planning. And like I said before, I started with myself in that internal work. And I went from there, and just, it was a lot of trial and error. I figured it out as I went. And for me, it made the difference having a plan to face whatever was coming my way. And it sometimes, some days it was because somebody forgot a project that was due and they needed help getting it to school. Some days it was the flat tire or a car breaking down. And then, other days it was much more serious stuff. But because I had a plan, I didn't handle it perfectly, but I handled it much, much better. And, all those balls we juggle as moms and just busy, driven women, I dropped a lot less of them.
Which is important. And I think too, I don't believe enough women actually celebrate their accomplishments every single day, or say, look at everything I've done today. I'm so proud of myself. I think if we started focusing on all the things we did right, our confidence would really build exponentially, really, really build. And I think that's super important. And you talk about a plan. I'm curious if you can share elements of that plan with us.
Absolutely thrilled to, because this is a very unique take that I have on crisis management planning, right? If you look up crisis management plan, if you Google that, you're going to get this very corporate, business focused document or template or, information. Well, we don't separate our personal life and our work life completely. When we go home, we take work home with us, or in the case where some of us work at home, it's just there. But we also are individuals when we're at work, and our family life is just a huge part of who we are as an employee or as a business owner. And those preparations that we take have to speak to both of them. So when I develop a crisis plan, it is absolutely essential to, those things are are both addressed right alongside each other. So on the crisis communication, lost my train of thought there. I address potential health crises. What disruptions might happen there? What communication disruptions happen if there is a lost cell phone, all the way to solar flares take down the cell tower reception, right? We can't get a hold of everyone. What's our plan? And then at work, what if there's a natural disaster that happened in my area recently and nobody could reach each other? What's our backup plan? So that goes for my team. At work, if I'm at work, for my family, we have a backup plan. And one of the most important aspects of that is having a phone tree. So I'm not calling 27 people. I call one person, and it starts a chain reaction because there are people set up to then take that ball from me. And so I communicate with the person I trust. In personally, that may be a spouse, that may be a partner, that may be a trusted friend who you keep advised of what's going on. At work, it's a boss or a team member, or someone, a colleague that you trust. They become your spokesperson, and you supply the immediate information, and then they take that from there to disseminate it to whoever else is on that list. And that's also planned out. Who are the people that need to know when there's an emergency? And it can change for different ones, for different situations, but it's thinking ahead. You're never going to plan for everything. You cannot possibly plan for all possible scenarios. Would we have ever planned for a pandemic that shut the world down?
No.
But there's repetitive tasks that can happen, and again, it's probably not always going to be perfect, but you're going to have a great start. Now, another aspect of that is just having some protocols in place. If you are incapacitated, who can speak for you? There are HIPAA laws that my adult children, if they're incapacitated because they are adults, they're not, the hospitals aren't going to give me any information. I have one of the four is still single. She needs someone to speak to her, for her, and advocate for her. So we have a plan together so that it's known, and permission has already been granted for me to receive that information. There's the same protocols that need to happen at work. If you're a business owner, who's your next person in line to speak for you if you can't? And what are their permissions? What do they need to have the permission to have access to information? It's a lot of pre-planning, but when something happens, it just takes the stress off, the chaos. It's still there, but it's so much more controllable.
Yeah.
And that is the stress for everyone involved.
Yeah. Because I remember when COVID hit, none of us knew. We were all like, at first I laughed. I was like, oh, this is a joke, right? I really thought it was a joke. And next thing I know, people are like, oh no, I'm getting toilet paper and paper towels and this and that. And I'm like, this isn't a joke. Like, I was like, oh my God. And then I started to kind of scramble. So I wish I had. Now I've got things situated and planned. So something like that ever happens again, I'm way more capable and confident of handling that. That is something that none of us had any idea, but I think we were all left a little bit scrambling. So that's great that you brought that up. So I'm curious, what types of tips and strategies for developing confidence and communication skills for the next emergency, whatever that may be. And it could be something little, or it could be, again, big. And I also find it the confident piece, because instead of reacting and getting caught up in drama with it, it is a great way to be able to respond to a situation while staying calm inside. So I definitely would love for you to share tips, strategies, tools for that for our listeners.
Excellent, excellent. So, my business is called RespondAbility, and really everything kind of rises and falls on that in the work that I do. You being able to respond to whatever comes your way, and whether that's a crisis or um, like a natural disaster or a daily crisis or a case of personal safety.
Mhm.
It's able to respond with the confidence that like I feel bold and empowered to respond, not react. Years ago, I saw Zig Ziglar speak, and those of us our age probably know who Zig Ziglar is. Some younger folks may not, but just a dynamic motivational speaker. And he said the words, respond, don't react to situations.
Mhm.
And man, has stuck with me for my entire life. Um, Responding is not having knee jerk actions that may leave you worse off than when you started. So, um, tips, tips. I
But
think
before you even go into tips, I really want to spotlight the fact that knee-jerk reactions, when we have a situation that comes to us and we are ill-prepared or we do not have the confidence within us to handle it, we tend to have knee-jerk reactions that can backfire. I really wanted to spotlight that comment because it is very true. I mean, there's times where I've done stuff where I'm like, "Oh, good Lord, what did I," like when I think back about it, I'm like, I totally reacted and I did not respond from that place of calmness and peace, which is a great place to respond from.
100%. And I think where that often raises its ugly head is in how we communicate. And we can react with just ugly, unhelpful words when that's probably not what we mean. We're just stressed, and those reactions are taking us to a place we wouldn't normally go in our actions, our words. And so again, coming from a place of confidence and calmness and having a plan, it's a lot easier to respond to chaos with some personal control. And I think we talked about that starting place of addressing your doubts, your limiting beliefs. That's a number one. And Tricia, you address this so well in the work that you do, and provide such an incredible tool for others to look at affirmations and use them in their life a little bit differently than I've ever heard of in the past. So hearing your own voice in affirmation recordings, I think that is magnificently powerful. So it's a great place to start. But if you don't have that yet, just start by saying nice things to yourself, because you wouldn't talk to a friend in such an ugly way, like we do sometimes. Then I think it is empowering yourself to understand what types of crises you may face. What like in my area where I live in Northwest Arkansas, we have spring, summer, sometimes December tornadoes that come through. We have to be prepared. And so I have a go bag. I have in that, actually, there are two, everything I might need if there is a tornado warning where I have to take shelter. And then what if it does hit my home? Do I have my ID? Do I have some cash? Do I have a roll of toilet paper and some water in there. I have a checklist of emergency preparedness, and I actually have a workshop where I help families work through crisis readiness together so that everyone's needs are addressed. Children, pets, because sometimes it can be easy to forget to have something for them as well. All of that is essential to feeling empowered, to not being as scared as I always used to be about tornadoes. Right? It gives you this confidence and empowerment to feel prepared. My husband would drill that into us, and we joked about him and being prepared for the zombie apocalypse. Like, we're ready if it happens, but aside from a zombie apocalypse happening, a pandemic can happen, a tornado can happen, flooding, a car accident. So many things can derail us from our daily lives. Having those essentials ready to go, copies of IDs, copies of your passport, knowing your bank account information. If you can't access it, so much of our lives are online. What if that's not? What if the grid goes down? And maybe not in an apocalyptic way, but it could happen. So let's be prepared and just be ready to respond. So acting out the plan can't happen for the first time when crisis or disaster strikes. Run through those scenarios in your head and with the people who are part of the plan. They need to communicate very clearly what your plan is, so others know how to respond as well. I think 100% essential, but also one of the easiest things to skip, because we'll wing it. Don't wing it. Let everyone know your plan so they can be your ally in the midst of whatever crisis, because they may be having a crisis that day too. So we're all in this together and need to be there to support each other. Communication is the answer to so many things. Clear communication, and it just matters when we understand each other. I mean, boy, that's such a broad statement and can apply to so many things. But understanding and respect, I think those are the answers to so many of the world's problems. But and then reviewing and refreshing those plans regularly. Go back after an incident. Review it. What went right? What could be improved? Don't think about what went wrong, but what could be improved. And do you need more of something? Do you need less of something? Do you need to change? But just look at, all right, if something happens again, how are we going to respond? It sounds a little bit like a broken record, but it's all about how we respond to whatever comes our way. If it's a broken fingernail to a major life crisis, it's all about how we respond to it. That determines how we get through it. And
I like how you really brought in, it's clear communication. It is ABCD, not kind of rambling and assuming people understand what you're saying. It is very clear communication to the point that, is this understandable? What don't you understand, so I can make sure we are all on the same page? I don't think there's enough of that being done. How, what else can I say so that you can understand it? If you don't understand it this way, let me try communicating it to you another way, because we're all on different pages when it comes to communication and different styles. So it's important, I think, when we talk about communication, you, me, Is it clear? Do you understand it? Do I have to say it in a different way? Is there, what piece don't you understand? I think that's so relevant to clear communication.
And I might add too, think about the level that you're communicating, because we would communicate to our spouses or partners, is not the same we should or can or need to communicate to a child.
Mhm.
There are different words we need to use. We need to kind of package something scary in a different way. We need to think about, are there any special needs within our family communication? If someone is neurodiverse, we need to be absolutely on point in how we communicate what to do if an emergency happens. We
Yes.
have really parent living with us that may have some dementia or Alzheimer's. We have to communicate much differently. And though thinking that out ahead of time can make the difference from one crisis turning into another crisis.
Mhm. That's very important. Can you share just a story or two of how women have successfully embodied this and transformed their leadership styles?
Oh, absolutely. I think, one, women we're true superheroes because we do on a daily basis navigate so many responsibilities. I think don't give ourselves enough credit. As we said earlier, we can be a little mean to ourselves, right? We don't have to be perfect. Um, when we talk about women who are navigating things well, I look to my peers around me. I know that working um, in different situations, one time it was at a newspaper. All right, newspapers. Now, there maybe aren't a lot of newspapers that are just still in print and um, active anymore. But that was my heart for so many years. In a community newspaper, we were a target. And at one time, there was a threat. Turned out to ultimately it was fine, but the threat was real. And I watched the publisher respond to that, not with panic and ensuing chaos. She said, you know what? All right, this is what we need to do. Now, I don't think she that I've talked about. She had just thought it out in her head. And, honestly, I learned so much from her responses to things. Um, it was watching her and her response to what do we do? They had fire where the entire newspaper office burnt down. Well, so that was her experience that led her to be prepared after that. She led us all through and communicated well. She knew where we needed to go, what we needed to do. I watched her thrive in that situation. And that sounds like kind of an interesting word to use at that point. It wasn't this, wow, this is a cool ride. It was, this is what I need to do. I'm going to step up and control the chaos by delegating, by and by looking at what do we have within our immediate vicinity that we need to use to handle this crisis. And it was just amazing. It was something that really started me on a path of thinking about that. I realize that in retrospect now. I didn't think about it at that time, but just an amazing woman. I have a friend who worked for Child Protective Services and navigated some gruesome scenes.
Yeah.
Learning from her how she did all that while being a mother and a wife and facing some of the worst situations I could ever imagine. How inspiring, how empowering when she would leave in the middle of the night to go save a child from a tragic situation, and while leaving her own children to do so. But that was her purpose, and she faced a very dangerous situation for herself, but to save another. And there are so many women in my life who have inspired me. There are plenty in history as well, and we can look to them and should look to them for what women are doing right, and what can we learn from them.
So it's about that time. So I would love for you to share where people can reach you at, what you're up to, what's going on in your world.
Very good. Very good. Like everyone else, there's a lot going on in my world, and, trying to navigate it all with as much boldness and grace as I can. But I feel good about it, having a plan that if something goes wrong, I think I've got it now. But, if you are like me, like I was, feeling overwhelmed and underprepared for, those unexpected challenges that are inevitably going to come your way, I have a new course that is called Prepared and Powerful, the Crisis Ready Female Leader. I would love for you to join me in that. It is more than a course. It is a program where you leave with a plan, feeling prepared, and you've got the support you need if you have questions along the way, and even afterwards, because this is 100% my focus for the foreseeable future. And I want to impact and influence 50,000 women by the year 2027. There's a lot we deal with in our world. And so let's start with, if you're interested, if this resonates with you, if you want to feel prepared and powerful, stop by tkholman.com/7 steps, the number 7, STEPS, and pick up a copy of my 7 steps to develop crisis ready leadership skills. You can connect with me on Facebook at TK Holman 01.
Okay. And guys, this will be underneath the call as well. So if you want, we'll have the links there as well. And if you have any questions, please leave them below as well.
Yes. Yes. I'd love to answer your questions, hear your thoughts, and maybe your successes, something you've learned along the way, and what can I learn from you as well?
Yeah. Everybody enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Thank you for stopping by, creating lasting change. We always do so well when we have a solid foundation. So have a happy Thursday. Thank you so much, Trina, for coming by and sharing your expertise with us.
Thank you for having me, Tricia. This has been fun.